She humiliated him, fired him, and told him he'd never be successful. But years later, when her company is on the brink of collapse, the only person who can save her is the intern she destroyed. And now, he's the one making the rules. Nathan Collins adjusted the sleeves of his worn-out blazer as he hurried through the gleaming glass doors of Hayes Corporation. It was his first internship in the corporate world, a world so different from the one he grew up in. Here, men in tailored suits walked with purpose, and women in designer heels clicked confidently across marble floors. Nathan, on the other hand, felt like an outsider, and no one made that clearer than Amanda Hayes. Ruthless, untouchable. Nathan had spent the last 3 months working under her, hoping to make an impression. But to Amanda, he was nothing more than an annoyance. The public humiliation. That morning, a high-stakes meeting was set to take place. Nathan had been assigned to organize the reports for Amanda's presentation. He had worked through the night, double-checking every figure. This was his chance to prove himself. As he entered the conference room, Amanda was already there, her presence commanding the room. Executives sat around the long table, eyes on her. Nathan hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward. "Ms. Hayes," he said, placing the folder on the table. "The reports you asked for. Everything is in order." Amanda barely looked at him. She flipped through the pages, then suddenly stopped. Silence filled the room. Nathan's stomach twisted. What was wrong? Amanda looked up, her cold blue eyes locking onto his. "You gave me last quarter's figures," she said flatly. Nathan's breath caught. That wasn't possible. I double-checked everything," he stammered, flipping through the papers. Amanda didn't wait. She tossed the folder across the table, sending papers flying. "You double-checked incompetence," she said, her voice sharp. Soft murmurs spread around the room. Nathan could feel the eyes of the entire boardroom burning into him. His face flushed hot with embarrassment. "That's not," he started, but Amanda cut him off. "I don't have time for excuses," she said. "If you can't handle something as basic as a report, what exactly are you doing here?" Nathan swallowed hard. She didn't care. She wasn't asking for an explanation. She was putting him in his place. The breaking point. Amanda turned to her assistant. "Get someone competent to fix this." Then, without another glance at Nathan, she moved on with the meeting. Nathan stood there, frozen. He wanted to defend himself. He wanted to say something, anything, but he knew it wouldn't matter. In Amanda's eyes, he was already dismissed. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to keep his emotions in check as he gathered the scattered papers. As he left the room, he heard the quiet laughter of a few executives. The humiliation burned, but something else burned even deeper. Determination. Amanda thought he was nothing. But one day, she would regret ever treating him this way. Nathan walked out of the building that day with a silent promise. He would never be humiliated again. Nathan walked out of Hayes Corporation with his head down, his hands clenched into fists. The humiliation still burned in his chest. The way Amanda had tossed his work aside like it was garbage. The way the executives had whispered, some even laughing at his expense. For the first time in his life, he felt truly powerless. But something inside him refused to accept it. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The first steps. Nathan's phone buzzed in his pocket. Ethan Carter. His best friend and the only person who had believed in him from the start. "Hey man," Nathan answered, trying to keep his voice steady. "You sound terrible," Ethan said. "What happened?" Nathan exhaled sharply. Amanda Hayes happened. There was a pause. Then Ethan sighed. "You know what? Forget her. Forget that company. You're better than this." Nathan let out a bitter chuckle. "Doesn't feel like it right now." "Then make it feel like it," Ethan said. "Use this man. Use this humiliation and do something with it. A new direction." That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. Amanda's words echoed in his mind. "If you can't handle something as basic as a report, what exactly are you doing here?" He sat up in bed, heart pounding. She thought he was worthless. But what if he could prove her wrong? Not with words, not with apologies, but with success. Nathan grabbed his laptop and started researching. Finances, investments, startup, the things rich people actually use to get ahead. Ethan had been talking about investing for years, but Nathan had never paid much attention. Now he did. He had no choice. Plan. For the next few weeks, Nathan threw himself into learning everything he could. During the day, he worked double shifts at a local diner. At night, he read books on the stock market, watched investment videos, and took free online courses. Every dollar he earned, he saved. It was exhausting. Some nights he barely slept. But he didn't care, because one day he would have power too. And when that day came, Amanda Hayes would no longer be the one looking down on him. She would be the one asking him for help. Nathan closed his laptop, his jaw tight with determination. Just wait, Amanda. This isn't over. 5 years had passed. The days of working double shifts, struggling to make ends meet, and being dismissed as a nobody were long gone. Nathan Collins was no longer the intern who had been humiliated and discarded. But no one knew that. A life in the shadows. Nathan had built his empire quietly. Through careful investments, calculated risks, and relentless work. He had turned his first few $1,000s into millions. But he never flaunted it. No flashy cars. No extravagant lifestyle. He had learned from the rich. True power doesn't beg for attention. Instead, he used his wealth strategically. He invested in promising startups, bought shares in struggling companies, and expanded his influence without anyone knowing his name. Till now. The perfect opportunity. One evening, Ethan stormed into Nathan's office, dropping a folder on his desk. "You're going to love this," he said, grinning. Nathan arched a brow and flipped open the folder. Then he froze. Hayes Corporation. The company that had thrown him away. The company where Amanda Hayes had humiliated him in front of an entire boardroom. Now she was on the verge of losing everything. The fall of Amanda Hayes. Nathan scanned the documents. Bad investments. Market losses. A slow but steady decline in revenue. Amanda had held on to her pride, refusing to seek outside help for too long. And now, she was desperate. Nathan leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers against the desk. Ethan smirked. "You know she's looking for investors, right?" Nathan's jaw clenched. It would be so easy. So easy to walk into her office, throw her own words back at her, and watch her beg. But was that what he wanted? His mind raced. For years, he had dreamed of this moment. But now that it was here, what was he going to do with it? Nathan exhaled slowly. "I want a meeting," he said finally. Ethan grinned. "Already taken care of. Tomorrow at noon." "She has no idea who she's meeting." Nathan smirked. "Perfect. The beginning of the end." As he closed the folder, Nathan felt it. The moment he had been waiting for. Tomorrow he would walk back into Hayes Corporation. But this time he wouldn't be the intern. This time he would be the one in control. Nathan adjusted his cufflinks as he stepped into the towering glass building of Hayes Corporation. The same place where, years ago, he had walked out humiliated and invisible. Today he wasn't invisible. But Amanda Hayes still didn't know who he was. The walk of power. Every step through the marble-floored lobby felt like a quiet victory. Executives bustled past, secretaries typed furiously, interns rushed to deliver documents. But this time, Nathan wasn't one of them. This time he was the one calling the shots. "Mr. Collins." A young assistant approached him nervously. Nathan nodded. "Ms. Hayes is expecting you. Right this way." She didn't know. Amanda didn't realize the investor she was about to meet was the same intern she had destroyed years ago. Nathan smirked. This was going to be interesting. Face to face once again. The assistant led him to a sleek office on the top floor. And there she was. Amanda Hayes. Still poised. Still elegant. Still radiating the same ruthless confidence. But this time, Nathan could see the cracks beneath the surface. Stress lined her face. The exhaustion in her eyes was unmistakable. She stood as he entered, offering a professional but practiced smile. "Mr. Collins," she greeted, extending a hand. "Thank you for coming. Please have a seat." Nathan shook her hand firmly, watching for any flicker of recognition. There was none. She had no idea who he was. He took a seat, crossing one leg over the other, completely at ease. "Let's get straight to business," Amanda said, sliding a portfolio across the table. "Hayes Corporation is in the process of restructuring, and we're seeking strategic investors." Nathan flipped through the pages, even though he already knew every single number by heart. Amanda continued, "We're offering an exclusive opportunity for investors like yourself to..." He paused. Nathan had closed the folder and was now watching her. Unmoving, unsmiling, waiting. Amanda tilted her head slightly, as if sensing something familiar. Nathan smirked. "You don't recognize me, do you?" Amanda blinked, caught off guard. "Should I?" Nathan let the silence stretch. Then he leaned forward. "5 years ago, you fired an intern in this very building," he said casually. "Humiliated him in front of your entire boardroom. Do you remember?" Amanda's brow furrowed slightly, as if searching her memory for something that didn't seem important. Nathan's smirk widened. "I was that intern." Amanda's breath hitched. The color drained from her face. Silence. For the first time in her life, Amanda Hayes was speechless. Nathan leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. "Now," he said, a slow grin forming, "let's talk about who really needs who in this room." For the first time in her career, Amanda Hayes was at a loss for words. Nathan saw it. The moment her confidence faltered, the way her fingers tensed slightly against the desk. She recovered quickly, of course. Amanda Hayes didn't stay shaken for long. But Nathan had seen it. And that was enough. The reality sinks in. Amanda cleared her throat, straightening in her chair. "Nathan Collins," she said slowly, as if tasting the name for the first time. A humorless chuckle escaped her lips. "Well, I have to admit, I didn't expect this." Nathan smirked. "Neither did I. But life has a funny way of bringing people back together, doesn't it?" Amanda narrowed her eyes. She was studying him now, trying to figure out what kind of game he was playing. "Let's be clear," she said, crossing her arms. "If you came here for some kind of revenge fantasy, I don't have time for it." Nathan tilted his head slightly, amused. "Revenge," he mused. "That's a strong word. I prefer reversal of circumstances." Amanda's jaw tightened. She knew exactly what he meant. The offer she can't refuse. Nathan leaned forward, clasping his hands together. "You need investors," he said, his voice smooth. "I have the resources. But before we discuss business, let's talk about terms." Amanda arched a brow. "Terms?" Nathan smiled. "Yes, because you see, Amanda, I don't just invest in failing companies. I invest in people. And quite frankly..." He let the silence stretch, watching her. "You haven't proven yourself worth the risk." A flicker of offense crossed her face. "I built this company from the ground up," she snapped. "I don't need to prove anything to you." Nathan chuckled. "Oh, but you do. Because right now, you're not in the position to dictate anything." "I am." Amanda clenched her jaw. She hated this. Hated the fact that the same intern she had dismissed was now holding all the power. And what made it worse? He wasn't mocking her. He wasn't yelling or throwing her own words back in her face. No, Nathan was calm, controlled. Which meant he was dangerous. The ultimate power play. Amanda exhaled sharply. "What are your terms?" Nathan's smirk widened slightly. "You work for me." Amanda froze. "Excuse me." "You heard me," Nathan said, leaning back. "If I'm going to invest in this company, I want full control over its operations. That means you step down as CEO. Effective immediately. And if you want to stay, you'll report directly to me." Amanda's nails dug into the armrest of her chair. Nathan watched as the weight of the offer sank in. He knew exactly what he was doing. She could say no. She could hold on to her pride and let the company crumble. Or she could swallow the humiliation and take the only chance she had left. Amanda inhaled deeply, her pride warring with her survival instincts. Then finally she looked him in the eye. "When do I start?" Nathan grinned. Now. Amanda Hayes had spent her entire career at the top. Now she was reporting to Nathan Collins, the former intern, the man Ella Desprezu. The irony was suffocating. The first day under Nathan's control. The shift in power was clear the moment Amanda walked into the office that used to be hers. Her name had already been removed from the CEO's door. Instead it read, Nathan Collins, Executive Chairman. Amanda clenched her jaw. He wasted no time. The moment she stepped inside, Nathan barely glanced up from his desk. "Good morning," he said casually. "You're late." Amanda bristled. "It's 8:05. Nathan smirked. "I start my meetings at 8 o'clock sharp. If you're going to work for me, you should know that." Amanda took a slow breath. She wouldn't let him get under her skin. "Fine," she said. "What do you need me to do?" Nathan finally looked up, his gaze cool and unreadable. "Simple," he said, sliding a thick folder across the desk. "Fix what you broke." The reality of her mistakes. Amanda opened the folder and immediately felt a lump in her throat. The numbers were worse than she thought. The company wasn't just struggling, it was barely hanging on. Bad investments, unpaid debts, a reputation that had been damaged beyond repair. She had built this empire, and now she was watching it crumble. Amanda exhaled sharply, shutting the folder. "You wouldn't have invested if you didn't think I could turn this around," she said, leveling her gaze at Nathan. He chuckled. "I didn't invest in you. I invested in potential. Whether you're still useful remains to be seen." His words stung. For the first time, Amanda realized how it felt to be the one underestimated. The fall from grace. The shift in power wasn't just between her and Nathan. It was everywhere. The employees who once walked on eggshells around her no longer feared her. Some ignored her entirely. Others smirked when she passed. She heard the whispers. "Look at her now. Karma, huh? Bet she never thought this would happen." Amanda held her head high, but every step felt heavier than the last. Nathan was testing her, waiting for her to crack. But she wouldn't give him that satisfaction. She couldn't. Because the truth was, she needed this job. And for the first time in her life, she was the one who had something to prove. Amanda had never felt small. Not when she built Hayes Corporation from the ground up. Not when she made ruthless decisions that secured her place at the top. Not even when competitors tried to take her down. But now, as she walked through the halls of her own company, feeling the eyes of employees who once feared her, the whispers and smirks aimed in her direction, she felt it. The weight of falling from power. And Nathan. He was watching. The office politics shift. Amanda sat at her new desk, a smaller windowless office tucked in the corner of a floor she once ruled. She hated it. Hated the way employees no longer scrambled to impress her. Hated the way some seemed to enjoy seeing her brought down. Even Sarah Bennett, a former junior manager who Amanda had barely acknowledged before, now held a quiet satisfaction in her eyes. Amanda sighed, rubbing her temples. She had never cared about being liked. But being powerless, that she couldn't stand. Nathan's game. At noon, Amanda was called into Nathan's office for a progress check. She entered to find him completely relaxed, leaning back in his chair, reviewing reports like he had always belonged there. "Have a seat," he said, gesturing casually. Amanda sat, her pride burning. "Tell me," Nathan continued, closing the folder. "What's it like?" She frowned. "What's what like?" His smirk was infuriating. Being on the other side of humiliation. Amanda's jaw clenched. She expected him to be smug, to gloat. But the worst part. He wasn't cruel. His tone wasn't mocking. He was simply studying her, waiting to see how she would react. Amanda took a slow breath, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "I don't regret being a strong leader," she said. "But I understand now that I wasn't always fair." Nathan's expression remained unreadable. "No, you weren't." Silence stretched between them. Then, after a moment, he leaned forward. "You want to fix this company?" he asked. Amanda straightened. "Of course." "Then prove it," Nathan said, tossing another file onto the desk. "This is your next assignment. Don't screw it up." Amanda took the file without hesitation. This wasn't about pride anymore. This was about survival. And if Nathan thought she would break, he was wrong. Amanda spent the night at her desk, surrounded by reports, financial statements, and restructuring plans. For the first time in years, she wasn't leading, she was proving herself. And the weight of that realization hit harder than she expected. A shift begins. The next morning, Amanda entered the boardroom for a strategy meeting. Employees who once feared her now barely acknowledged her. She could feel their doubts. They thought she was finished. Nathan sat at the head of the table, watching as she took her seat. "Let's begin," he said. Amanda inhaled. This was her moment. She opened her file and started laying out a real, actionable plan to restructure Hayes Corporation. She expected interruptions, dismissals, but instead, people listened. Even Nathan. For the first time since he took over, he didn't question her immediately. And that was more satisfying than any power move. Conversation that changes everything. After the meeting, Amanda stepped into the hallway, exhaling in relief. She had done well, and Nathan knew it. She turned to see Sarah Bennett standing nearby, arms crossed. "You did good in there," Sarah admitted. Amanda raised a brow. That almost sounded like a compliment. Sarah smirked. "Don't get used to it." There was a pause. Then, to Amanda's surprise, Sarah added, "People can change, you know." Amanda met her gaze. "Maybe," she said. "But they have to want to." And for the first time, Amanda realized she did. Nathan notices. That evening, Nathan found Amanda still at her desk, going over numbers. He leaned against the doorframe. "You're still here." Amanda glanced up. "Since when do I clock out early?" Nathan studied her. He had expected resistance, defiance. But instead, Amanda was doing the work. And maybe, just maybe, she was finally starting to understand. Amanda had spent weeks proving herself. She had taken on the hardest tasks, worked late nights, and rebuilt the trust of those who once resented her. But Nathan wasn't convinced yet. And today was the real test. The high-stakes meeting. The boardroom was filled with investors, department heads, and key executives. At the center of it all sat Nathan Collins, his expression unreadable. Amanda stood at the front, ready to present the final restructuring plan. Everything depended on this. The numbers were solid. The projections were realistic. She had no margin for failure. Nathan leaned back in his chair, watching. "Go ahead," he said. "Convince us." The defining moment. Amanda took a deep breath. Then she delivered. Her voice was steady, her strategy bulletproof. No arrogance, no intimidation, just competence. When she finished, the room was silent. Then, one by one, the board members nodded in approval. Nathan's lips curled into the smallest smirk. She had done it. The choice that defined her. After the meeting, Nathan found Amanda standing by the office window, staring at the city she once ruled. "You pulled it off," he said. Amanda turned to him, crossing her arms. "I told you I would." Nathan nodded, then paused. "You could leave," he said. "Start fresh somewhere else. Walk away from all of this." Amanda studied him carefully. For years, she had defined herself by power, control, and fear. Now she had built something different, respect. And for the first time, that was enough. So she exhaled and gave him her answer. "I think I'll stay." Nathan smirked. "Good choice." Amanda sat across from Nathan in his office, the tension between them different now. No longer adversarial. No longer a power struggle. Just a quiet understanding. The final decision. Nathan tapped his fingers against his desk. I have one last question for you. Amanda arched a brow. Just one. He smirked. For now. Then his expression grew serious. If I walked away today, if I handed you back this company, would you run it the same way you did before? Silence. Amanda didn't answer immediately. Because for the first time she wasn't sure. I thought being feared meant being respected, she admitted. I thought control was the only way to stay on top. Nathan nodded, waiting. But I was wrong, she continued. Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn. Nathan studied her carefully. Then, after a moment, he stood up and walked toward the window. This company is yours again, he said, without turning around. Amanda blinked. What? You earned it, he said simply. I never wanted revenge, Amanda. I wanted you to understand. And now you do. A new beginning. Amanda exhaled, not sure what to feel. Relief. Pride. Gratitude. Maybe all of it. Nathan turned back to her. So what now? Amanda smirked. Now, she said, we rebuild it the right way. Nathan chuckled. I'll hold you to that. As Amanda left his office, she glanced back at him once. For years, she had seen Nathan as nothing more than a disposable intern. Now she saw him as an equal. And maybe, just maybe, as a friend. Life has a way of turning the tables. What would you do if the person who once humiliated you was now at your mercy? Would you take revenge? Or would you prove that success is the best answer? Nathan had the power to destroy Amanda the same way she destroyed him. But in the end, he chose something even greater. He chose to rise above ***. Click the video on the screen now to continue your journey of self-discovery and personal growth. If this story inspired you, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another powerful lesson about ambition, redemption, and the choices that define us. See you in the next one.